Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's Thursday, the 22nd of January 2026, and the time is 11:33 a.m. I nearly started this video at 11:11 a.m., which is the angel numbers sequence. I caught the time, but then I remembered I had to wash my CPAP mask and the hosing and what else did I need to do? Put a load of washing on, potted. So I've done all that and I can relax now, and I thought I would read to you. It's a very thick book. I think it's a trilogy, 3 books for the price of one. So I'm not sure if I'll read the entire thing, but you know what I'm like. Once I get going, I intrepidly persevere till I complete a mission. What is your mission? Reading stories on YouTube and pouring out your life force and life essence and life meanderings and processing ancient traumas, sometimes fresh traumas, but in the process of all of that, living my very best life out in my sacred space garden with my beautiful birdies and the wild ones that come to visit as well. Kookaburra just flew right past me just as I began this video, and they're so comfortable with me now because I feed them and we've developed a rapport and a bit of trust. And it's actually quite delightful. So Rati's here. She's nearly finished actually. I have to say goodbye to her soon when she finishes her work for the morning. Yes, I've been, my body clock's thrown a bit out of kilt because the last few nights I've been eating dinner quite late at night. 9 or 10 p.m. Last night I cooked dinner at 9. By the time I sat down to eat, it was around about 10 p.m. And I made a lovely, I make it with beef, diced beef or beef strips, whatever I have purchased, whichever variety of dead cattle it is. But anyway, it's not good that I still eat meat, but I need to have some red meat from time to time because I eat a lot of chicken. So I cooked up the beef, diced beef with, I had zucchini, half a zucchini, can't even think of the word, green capsicum, and 2 carrots, and tomatoes. I used up some of the tomatoes that were getting a little bit overripe, and of course with coconut milk and hokkien noodles, and I throw in a bit of garam masala, which is an Indian spice, and my Indian neighbour was horrified when I told him that I throw it in everything, but I actually really like it. It's a bit sweet. And I threw in some grated ginger and some lime juice, and by the gods it was delicious. Thoroughly enjoyed it sitting there. I was watching a TV show called The Abandoned. I know, ironic, isn't it? The smallest violin, diddly 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 diddly, and but it's a western with 2 rival women, rivals fighting over land, back in the old Wild West when people did that, fought and killed over land and wealth, and well, I guess nothing much has really changed. They still do it, but I'm talking about, this is back in the late 1800s, in the pioneer days when life was very, very cheap indeed, and you could get shot just for looking at someone the wrong way. I guess in some quarters in Western civilization, that hasn't changed all that much either, but let's not think about that. Anyway, it's quite a wonderful story. I finished watching another TV show. Can't think what it was called now. That was very good too. So I usually at night I spin my fleece on my spinning wheel and I watch TV shows, but I didn't spin the last 2 nights. I've been drying out the one I had worked on for a week. It takes me about a week to spin up enough wool, and I get very tired from it, to be honest. So I thought I'll take a break from spinning for a few nights. I nearly got into it last night, starting a new bobbin, but I thought, no, I'll just have a bit of a break. Anyway, I watched all these wonderful shows, and really, life is quite lovely. Takes my mind off my problems watching other TV shows with other people's problems. It's probably why you come to watch my channel. What's the old girl getting up to now? Not very bloody much, people of Earth. Here's Kermie's come to see us. Say hello to the people, Kermie. Say hello, people of Earth. Hello, goodbye, I love you. I'm a little animaniac, but I'm a birdie maniac, so I'm vastly superior to all the other animals. Just saying. Isn't he cute? And little Bo is up there on the swing. He really likes that swing. I've decided I'm going to buy another one for their inside cage now that they both seem to enjoy it. And why not? What's money for anyway, except for providing lovely things for our beloved ones and making them happy, and their happiness is my happiness, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to read to you Gerald, Durrell, the Corfu Trilogy. It says 3 classic tales of childhood on an island paradise. So I thought it might be something a bit, lighter and a bit happier. And he was an author that my friend Lynn Robertson in my childhood in New Zealand frequently would read out to me. And I'll just read you what the back says. He's the author of My Family and Other Animals, Birds, Beasts and Relatives, The Garden of the Gods. Just before the Second World War, the Durrell family decamped to the glorious sun-soaked island of Corfu, where the youngest of the 4 children, 10-year-old Gerald, discovered his passion for animals, toads and tortoises, bats and butterflies, scorpions and octopuses. When I grew up, we were taught to call octopus plural octopi, and I still do it, but I think they've gotten rid of that old archaic idea now, and they just call it octopuses. But I would have still said, out of programming for my education, octopi, but we won't argue semantics over who's right, because we're both right and we're both wrong, depending on who's delivering the story, people of Earth. My truth, your truth, our truth can be variable according to the predilections and the inclinations of the human spirit. Did it break?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I can buy another one if we need to.
Yeah.
Through glorious silver green olive groves and across brilliant white beaches. Doesn't it sound beautiful? Jerry pursued his obsession, causing hilarity and mayhem in his ever-tolerant family. Durrell's memories of those enchanted days gave rise to these 3 classic tales loved by generations of adults and children alike, which are now available in one volume for the first time. So it's those 3 books before mentioned. Right, shall we get into it, people of Earth? I'm thinking it might be less traumatising than some of the other stories I've been reading to you, and we could do with some light and joyful and pleasurable things for me to read to you and for you to listen to, because life should be light and fluffy and pleasurable, at least preferably 80% of the time, 90% of the time, if you can live in manic denial like I do and swing it. But yes, we need some more joy and delight. There's been a lot of darkness in our current civilization and worldview, and I thought maybe it was just me, feeling a bit dark, but I had my debrief yesterday, and comfortingly but also a bit astonishingly, my doctor concurs with everything I have to say about our current state of our world. So I'm not paranoid, and I'm not imagining it, which is both comforting and astonishing, because one wishes one could be just imagining it, that somehow we could just wave a magic wand and have it all go away and life be beautiful again. So we have to create the beautiful life from heart and mind and soul, and I do it by reading delightful stories and sometimes real and gritty stories, but I think this will be a nice treat for us, because the Mama T, aka the Tanya, aka the psychedelic dreamer, aka Miss 5, I used to really delight in these stories as a child, and as you've probably realised, I'm very fond of animals and birds, and sometimes prefer them to most other humans, to be frank. Yes, I filled up their little paddling pool, the crow's back, to have a swim. He said, "Thank you for the fresh water, Mama T." "You're welcome, my love. You enjoy that." It needed refreshing, because they drink out of it and they have a good splash, and it gets manky after a couple of days. Right, we'll just read this little bit of a foreword here. Gerald Durrell, born 1925 and lived till 1995, moved from England to Corfu with his family when he was 8. He immediately became fascinated by the island's natural history and spent much of his time studying the local wildlife and keeping numerous and often unusual pets. He grew up to be a famous naturalist, animal collector, and conservationist. Durrell dedicated his life to the conservation of wildlife, and it is through his efforts that creatures such as the Mauritius pink pigeon and the Mallorcan midwife toad have avoided extinction. Kimmy, that's not nice. You're being a bully. Over his lifetime, he wrote 37 books, went on dozens of animal collecting trips, and presented numerous TV shows. He founded the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust in 1959 as a centre for the conservation of endangered species, of which his wife Lee is still honorary director. He was awarded the OBE in 1982. Right, the first book, My Family and Other Animals. And he dedicated the book to his mother, which is very sweet. It is a melancholy of mine own, compounded of many simples, extracted from many objects, and indeed the sundry contemplation of my travels, which, by often rumination, wraps me in a most humorous sadness. Shakespeare, as you like it. The speech for the defence. Why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. The White Queen, through the looking glass. This is the story of a 5-year sojourn that I and my family made on the Greek island of Corfu. It was originally intended to be a mildly nostalgic account of the natural history of the island, but I made a grave mistake by introducing my family into the book in the very first few pages. Having got them on paper, they then proceeded to establish themselves and invite various friends to share the chapters. It was only with the greatest difficulty and by exercising considerable cunning that I managed to retain a few pages here and there, which I could devote exclusively to animals. I have attempted to draw an accurate and unexaggerated picture of my family in the following pages. They appear as I saw them. To explain some of their more curious ways, however, I feel that I should state that at the time we were in Corfu, the family were all quite young. Larry, the eldest, was 23, Leslie was 19, Margot 18, while I was the youngest, being of the tender and impressionable age of 10. We have never been very certain of my mother's age, for the simple reason that she can never remember her date of birth. All I can say is that she was old enough to have 4 children. My mother also insists that I explain that she is a widow for, as she so penetratingly observed, you never know what people might think. In order to compress 5 years of incident, observation and pleasant living into something a little less lengthy than the Encyclopaedia Britannica, I have been forced to telescope, prune and graft, so that there is little left of the original continuity of events. Ouch, that was my knee. Oh, it's very bad when your knees talk to you, people of Earth. Right, where were we? Also, I have been forced to leave out many happenings and characters that I would have liked to describe. It is doubtful if this would have been written without the help and enthusiasm of the following people. I mention this so that blame can be laid in the right quarter. My grateful thanks then to Dr. Theodore Stephanides. With typical generosity, he allowed me to make use of material from his unpublished work on Corfu and supplied me with a number of dreadful puns, some of which I have used. You're looking for something to eat, Turkey, and the bowl's empty, and I'm a terrible mother. Fair complaint. I'll be back. all better now. They let me know when their food's not there. Ooh, they come round and they give me side eye, and they really, they're in charge of Sacred Space Garden, the birdies. Here comes Crow, he's just realised. Yes, there's food there now, my love. You can thank Turkey for jogging my conscience. I'm laughing at the birds. They just asked for food. The bowl was empty. Yeah. So I put the food out, and I'm just telling the crows they can thank the turkey for giving me side eye and making me feel guilty.
Okay, see you next week, inshallah.
See you next week.
Bye, buddy.
Okay, bye. It is a bit crazy how I live, but you know, what can I say? What's up there? Yeah, Kookaburra, he's waiting for chicken, but he had the last of it yesterday. Bye, see you next week. You see, I live a bit like Gerald, Durrell too, but probably with, you know, I don't know, being a widow raising 4 children on a small island, it doesn't sound like they had a lot of money either, but they had enough money to get themselves to a lovely, lovely island to live on. So there is that. Perhaps she inherited through her husband by being widowed. You just don't know, do you? Anyway, things aren't always about money and finances and how you get by. Sometimes life is just beautiful, no matter how precarious your situation might be, and I've had to learn to live that way too. Not worry about those who are vicious and judge you for being, financially challenged, but just live as if you're a multi-millionaire in paradise, because it helps keep you grounded in a little bit of feeling of manic denial and happiness. People are there having a magical life, loving every day as if it were a gift to be unwrapped. Yes, the crow's gone over, the turkey's eating, and the crow's wanting some too. There's plenty there, but you'll have to take turns, because Turkey asked first. She really did. She asked before all of you. Well, you got the swimming pool. She's not interested in the swimming pool. She doesn't go in it. And she just wanted food. They're feeding their baby. The baby's nearly as big as they are, but they're still feeding him. Spoilt child. Sweet child of mine. You want to see? It's actually quite delightful. We'll have to look through the... Oh, they flew away when I got up. Damn it. But yeah. And here's Turkey doing her thing. Crow's singing a little repertoire over there. Right. My family. They, after all, unconsciously provided a lot of the material and helped me considerably during the writing of the book by arguing ferociously, oh dear goddess, and rarely agreeing about any incident on which I consulted them. It's like that with families, isn't it? But everyone remembers reality differently. There's always some different version of the truth. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's completely twisted and distorted to their own advantage. People are there. I had a family like that. Oh, they were profoundly fucking evil. It's why I adhere to my truth, even though sometimes it cuts me both ways too. The truth or nothing. Right. My wife, who pleased me by laughing uproariously when reading the manuscript, only to inform me that it was my spelling that amused her. Haven't noticed any spelling mistakes so far. Must have a very excellent editor, people of Earth. Right. Sophie, my secretary, who was responsible for the introduction of commas and the ruthless eradication of the split infinitive. I should like to pay a special tribute to my mother, to whom this book is dedicated. Like a gentle, enthusiastic and understanding Noah, she has steered her vessel full of strange progeny through the stormy seas of life with great skill, always faced with the possibility of mutiny, always surrounded by the dangerous shoals of overdraft and extravagance, never being sure that her navigation would be approved by the crew, but certain that she would be blamed for anything that went wrong. Indeed. That she survived the voyage is a miracle, but survive it she did, and moreover with her reason more or less intact. As my brother Larry rightly points out, we can be proud of the way we have brought her up. She is a credit to us. That she has reached that happy nirvana where nothing shocks or startles is exemplified by the fact that one weekend recently, when all alone in the house, she was treated to the sudden arrival of a series of crates containing 2 pelicans, a scarlet ibis, a vulture, and 8 monkeys. My dear of heaven. A lesser mortal might have quailed at such a contingency, but not mother. On Monday morning I found her in the garage being pursued round and round by an irate pelican which she was trying to feed with sardines from a tin. "I'm glad you've come, dear," she panted. "This pelican is a little difficult to handle." When I asked her how she knew the animals belonged to me, she replied, "Well, of course I knew they were yours, dear. Who else would send pelicans to me?" Which goes to show how well she knows at least one of her family. Lastly, I would like to make a point of stressing that all the anecdotes about the island and the islanders are absolutely true. Living in Corfu was rather like living in one of the more flamboyant and slapstick comic operas. The whole atmosphere and charm of the place was, I think, summed up neatly on an Admiralty map we had, which showed the island and the adjacent coastline in great detail. At the bottom was a little inset which read, "Caution, as the buoys marking the shoals are often out of position, mariners are cautioned to be on their guard when navigating these shores." So, like Brisbane, Australia, a beautiful but rather deceptively dangerous and toxic at times. Well, you've got to have yin and yang, don't you, people of Earth? Yin and bloody yang. Why is there some kind of rubbish truck coming on a Thursday? I think it's a tree crushing thingy, you know, when they do cut down trees and it grinds up into mulch. That's what's going on. We're going to get disturbed by that now, are we? What did I say about yin and yang and paradise and hell and toxicity and danger amongst the idyllic beautiful scenery and paradise. Fuck! But anyway, hopefully he won't be here long, or we'll just have to go inside. Just when you think it's lovely out in the garden. Kermie's playing with his toys. What you doing, Kermie? Are you playing with your toys? Yes, Mama. I'm a very busy birdie. It's very important. Do not disturb me in my happiness. Okay, Kermie. By the God, he's bossy, isn't he? See, little bird. Right. Part 1. Do not disturb me in my happiness either. Babies. Part 1. There is a pleasure, sure, in being mad, which none but madmen know. Dryden, the Spanish friar, Book 2, I, whatever that means. I feel like quoting Alice in Wonderland. He does it just to annoy because he knows it teases. Right, what's going on here? Let's see if we have to do camp. Just gonna sit here and he's leaving. I don't even know what that was about. Is he leaving? No, just moved up a little bit. Right. The migration. July had been blown out like a candle by a biting wind that ushered in a leaden August sky. A sharp, stinging drizzle fell, billowing into opaque grey sheets when the wind caught it. Along the Bournemouth seafront, the beach huts, turned blank wooden faces towards a greeny grey, froth-chained sea that leaped eagerly at the cement bulwark of the shore. The gulls had been tumbled inland over the town, and they now drifted above the housetops on taut wings, whining peevishly. It was a sort of weather calculated to try anyone's endurance. I swear, sometimes I think they come down here to skive off on their lunch break, but you think you'd turn off the fucking truck then, wouldn't you, and not spread noise and pollution in my direction. Maybe I should invite them to listen to the story so we can have the best of both worlds, people of Earth. But that would be weird, wouldn't it? Come and listen to my story so you don't interrupt me with your loud machinery noises. Good goddess. Anyway, considered as a group, my family was not a very prepossessing sight that afternoon, for the weather had brought, it's really grinding my gears, for the weather had brought with it the usual selection of ills to which we were prone. For me, lying on the floor labelling my collection of shells, it had brought catarrh, pouring it into my skull like cement, or cement trucks, or whatever that is. It's not a cement truck, I know that much. It's a crushing truck. It's crushing my creativity. Crushing. I'm not that angry. I'm just mildly irked. Pouring it into my skull like cement, so that I was forced to breathe stertorously through open mouth. For my brother Leslie, hunched dark and glowering by the fire, it had inflamed the convolutions of his ears, so that they bled delicately but persistently. To my sister Margot, it had delivered a fresh dappling of acne spots to a face that was already blotched like a red veil. Oh, bless. For my mother, there was a rich, bubbling cold and a twinge of rheumatism to season it. Only my eldest brother Larry was untouched, but it was sufficient that he was irritated by our failings. I'm going to have to ask that young man, how long are you going to be here for? It's not that you're completely unwelcome, work has to be undertaken, but he's not doing anything but sitting there, people are there. It was Larry, of course, who started it. The rest of us felt too apathetic to think of anything except our own ills, but Larry was designed by Providence to go through life like a small blonde firework, exploding ideas in other people's minds, and then curling up with cat-like unctuousness and refusing to take any blame for the consequences. He had become increasingly irritable as the afternoon wore on. At length, glancing moodily around the room, he decided to attack Mother as being the obvious cause of the trouble. "Why do we stand this bloody climate?" he asked suddenly, making a gesture towards the rain-distorted window. "Look at it. And if it comes to that, look at us. Margot swollen up like a plate of scarlet porridge. Leslie wandering around with 14 fathoms of cotton wool in each ear. Jerry sounds as though he's had a cleft palate from birth. And look at you. You're looking more decrepit and hag-ridden every day." Mother peered over the top of a large volume entitled Easy Recipes from Rajputana. "Indeed, I'm not," she said indignantly. "You are," Larry insisted. "You're beginning to look like an Irish washerwoman, and your family looks like a series of illustrations from a medical encyclopedia." Mother could think of no really crushing reply to this, so she contented herself with a glare before retreating once more behind her book. Which makes perfect logical sense to me. I avoided many family occasions and ostentations by living behind a book. Being there and not there is a bit of an art form, people are there. Sometimes you have to be not there mentally as well to escape them, but that's the stage 3 that you get to eventually. We all get there eventually. Like I'm getting there as the truck slowly pulls away. Yay! Bye-bye, truck driver. Hope you had a nice little jerk-off session, but now you're gone. And I'm not sorry to see you go. Peace is once again restored. For how long that might last, we don't know. It's hard to be a fully functioning human being when you have very bad nerves and so many distractions. On that note, Mr. Crow was back with his beak wide open looking at me. Go and have another swim, my love. Go on. Are you going to come and get some seeds? That's a good idea. No more chicken, but we've got seeds. He says, I really prefer the chicken, Mama T. I know, but there's cracked corn. You'll like the corn? No? No. He's telling me he really wants chicken. Well, you're shit out of luck because you all ate it yesterday. There isn't any more. Okay, Mama T. I'll go eat worms instead. Okay, you do that. There's plenty of grubs and things in this garden. You're keeping the ecosystem under control for me, and I do appreciate it. He's squatting down in the pool looking at me and listening to me talking to him, and fluttering and wetting himself. You're a very magnificent bird with your shiny black feathers. See, Kermie and Bo, you've got a bath in your cage. You could squat down in that water and have a bit of a splish splash too. Oh, no, Mama T, no, we like being dirty birds. It's very strange that they don't bath. Charlie bathed constantly. And then she was also missing half her feathers from the waist down, so maybe she was itchy all the time too. I don't know. But she loved her baths. Crow's back for another bath. He can't get enough of it. I'm like that when I'm in the water. I'm in there for hours and hours and hours till my skin turns all wrinkly and crepey and swollen, and then I get out. I love water. Oh, being bitten by ants. Lots and lots of ants. Right. What we need is sunshine, Larry continued. Don't you agree, Les? Les? Leslie unravelled a large quantity of cotton wool from one ear. What do you say? He asked. There you are, said Larry, turning triumphantly to Mother. It's become a major operation to hold a conversation with him. I ask you, what a position to be in. One brother can't hear what you say and the other one can't be understood. Really, it's time something was done. I can't be expected to produce deathless prose in an atmosphere of gloom and eucalyptus. Yes, dear, said Mother vaguely. What we all need, said Larry, getting into his stride again, is sunshine, a country where we can grow. And I'm laughing because it was precisely the same arguments my mother posed to me as to why we should migrate to Brisbane, Australia. She said, I'm tired of visiting your children with their snot noses and you constantly ill and them constantly ill. We need to be in the sunshine. So we came to the sunshine state. Guess what? We were constantly ill anyway with other things. It's a bit bloody unfair when you think about it. But now we have the excruciating interminable heat, more sunshine than we could ever have dreamed of in our previous lifetime in Wellington, New Zealand. And either a hellscape or a paradise, depending on my mood states or what's actually going on in my current paradigm. So there is that. But it's a gorgeous day today. It really is. I just saw a big white butterfly flutter by, and the crows have swum and eaten. It's quiet again. Quiet. Like Björk. Then to get it out. You've got to just get it out. Right. Kermie's destroyed another toy, but that's okay because they were bought for him to destroy. And on we go. Yes, dear, that would be nice, agreed Mother, not really listening. I had a letter from George this morning. He says Corfu's wonderful. Why don't we pack up and go to Greece? Yes, or why don't we indeed? I can't afford to go anywhere, people there. I'm trapped in planet hellscape, aka paradise. But if I had the money, Greece would be just as delightful a place to go to as anywhere. I'd like to have seen the Parthenon. And I'd like to have gone to Cyprus and see the Oracle of Delphi. Where else would I like to go? Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Oh well, through this book we're going to be in Corfu in Greece, and that will be almost as good as the real thing, but not quite, because we don't have smell-o-vision, don't get to see the scenery with our own eyes. I'm so sick of living a one-dimensional life where everything's just so close and yet so far, like my love life and everything. And never mind, people of Earth. What are you looking at, Kermie? He says, you wouldn't want to go to Greece and leave me behind, Mama T. What would happen to us? We've had a happy life with you for the last 9 months. Is it 9 months or 8 months? May they came into my life. 8 months. Yes, you have indeed had a happy life, little snooks. I overcompensated a bit because I was so distressed when we lost our Charlie. I thought we must from now on live as if we were very opulent indeed. And I got you bigger cages and nicer cages. And life's pretty good for you guys. I was on the brink of buying Charlie a brand new, bigger, lovelier cage too. But she died. But we did not fail to thrive, boys. No, you got upgraded. In fact, Bo was in so much shock when I bought him his bigger cage. He sat there in depression for a month, not knowing quite what to do. It was such a culture shock to him. Now he's a happy little bird. Happy little birdie, boys. Yes. I'm a bit hungry, people of Earth. I better get on with this chapter because My tummy's rumbling. I'm feeling quite queasy with hunger. Why don't we pack up and go to Greece? Very well, dear, if you like, said Mother unguardedly. Where Larry was concerned, she was generally very careful not to commit herself. When? Asked Larry, rather surprised at this cooperation. Mother, perceiving that she had made a tactical error, cautiously lowered easy recipes from Rajputana. Well, I think it would be a sensible idea if you were to go on ahead, dear, and arrange things. Then you can write and tell me if it's nice, and we all can follow, she said cleverly. At 23, what was he doing still living at home anyway, one might ask. But anyway, Larry gave her a withering look. You said that when I suggested going to Spain, he reminded her, and I sat for 2 interminable months in Seville, waiting for you to come out, while you did nothing except write me massive letters about drains and drinking water, as though I was the town clerk or something. No, if we're going to Greece, let's all go together. You do exaggerate, Larry, said Mother plaintively. Anyway, I can't go just like that. I have to arrange something about this house. Arrange? Arrange what, for heaven's sake? Sell it. I can't do that, dear, said Mother, shocked. Why not? But I've only just bought it. Sell it while it's still untarnished, then. Don't be ridiculous, dear, said Mother firmly. That's quite out of the question. It would be madness. So we sold the house and fled from the gloom of the English summer like a flock of migrating swallows. I remember the extreme happiness I felt. Well, when we first arrived, my mother-in-law died 9 days after we arrived there, so the happiness was short-lived. But I remember the extreme happiness we felt when we first arrived, and we got off the plane. And Brisbane in summer is so aromatic. You don't always notice it, when you've lived here a long time. You take it for granted because, you're acclimatised. But when you first get off a plane or, disembark a ship, and you're met by the smells of frangipani and all the wondrous things, it really is, it almost slaps you with the sheer delight and magic of it. Right. We all travelled light, taking with us only what we consider to be the bare essentials of life. Oh, by the way, we didn't know that my mother-in-law was about to die when we migrated here. We knew she was elderly and everything, and I had intended to bring her over here actually to come and live with us, but my mother-in-law was convinced that that wasn't going to happen and didn't actually trust or believe in me, which is a pity because I would have made it happen somehow. And anyway, 9 days after we migrated here, she died of a heart attack. And I'm convinced she actually died of broken heart syndrome. And my evil mother, who was rotten to me for the first 6 months we lived here, would constantly, every time she visited me, You killed your mother-in-law, you killed your mother-in-law, as if you stabbed her with a knife, you killed her. The psychological torture she put me through when I was already grieving my mother-in-law and the ghastly horror of losing her so soon after coming here went on for 6 bloody months. Then one day I got angry and I looked at my mother and I said, no, if anyone killed my mother-in-law, Hilda, it was you, Mum. It was your idea to bring me, my husband and my babies here. And for what? For me to suffer this abuse on a daily basis. Fuck off. And then my mother had this very Germanic thing. When you told her something that was very, very true and could not be disputed, she would open her mouth like this and then snap it shut like this and push out her chin. And then she looked at me and she nodded and she said, okay. And I just looked at her and I thought, you really are a demon. You're not even a real human being in that carcass. But I said nothing more. My point had been taken. And to her credit, she never once ever again mentioned her ideology that I had somehow murdered my mother-in-law by leaving her behind with her other children, adult children, who weren't very nice to her, by the way. So there was that. It's partly why I wanted her to follow us here. But then my husband wasn't very nice to her either. So really, what choice did she have but to let her heartstrings just snap and leave this mortal coil? I can't exactly say I blame her. She was 69 when she died and I'm now 60, and I actually kind of feel the same way. What's the point in carrying on when everything and everyone just dishonours and disrespects and abandons you? There's not a lot of point, is there? But I'm staying alive if for no other reason. It's my characteristic, natural born, innate defiance. Living my best life. Just to, sometimes simply just to know that out there somewhere I'm pissing off my enemies just by staying alive. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah. Staying alive, babies. Rati comes in the morning, on Thursdays, usually just before 10. She starts at 10. And she always, this is our standard patter. How are you? And I say, alive. How are you? I'm alive too. And then we look at each other and we laugh and laugh and laugh. I said, well, you're still smiling, Rati. She said, so are you. And it's delightful. She really is a beautiful soul. A beautiful, beautiful soul. And I was telling her this morning, because she mentioned she bought a second-hand car for her little daughter, And I was telling her the story how when I was newly married, or actually I was engaged, my husband bought me my first car, a little Morris Minor, and then painted it. I didn't like the bone colour that it was painted, so he painted it metallic cherry red with sparkles. And then all the years later, when I had finished with that ugly, evil, salacious, murderous, almost killed me, that will dispute, when I finally inherited enough money, a little bit of money that I inherited was enough to buy my car. And I bought, a red sparkly car. And then I looked at my daughter. I said, life has brought us full circle, except this is the first car I've ever bought with my own money for my own self. Which was a wonderful feeling for about 5 minutes, I don't put high value in vehicles, really. It's just a mode of transport. It's not, I don't worship them like my ex-husband used to do and my former boyfriend Courtney used to do. Cars are tools, machines, vehicles. They are not objects that I deify, although it's ironic that the number plate equates in gematria to the name of God, Ein Sof. That always makes me laugh. I said to Rati, God's got his thumb on me whether I bloody like it or not. Even the car I had to fight so hard for ended up being named after God. And it's a Mazda, so Mazda Ahura of the Zoroastrian gods too. Double jeopardy. But it's been a good car. It's the paintwork's shit, it's all eroded, but and it needs a service, but it's been a good car. But I said to Rati, it just sits out there like a glorious garden ornament, don't go anywhere. But it's a shame really. I think about selling it, but on the other hand it's good to have something for the rare occasions when I do feel like going for a drive somewhere. Which to be fair I must do soon-ish, when I can afford the petrol for a bit of a longer trip, because I haven't been anywhere in months and months. Right. We all travelled light, taking with us only what we considered to be the bare essentials of life. When we opened our luggage for customs inspection, the contents of our bags were a fair indication of character and in tourists. Thus, Margot's luggage contained a multitude of diaphanous garments, 3 books on slimming, dear goddess, and a regiment of small bottles, each containing some elixir guaranteed to cure acne. Leslie's case held a couple of roll-top pullovers and a pair of trousers which were wrapped round 2 revolvers, an air pistol, a book called Be Your Own Gunsmith, and a large bottle of oil that leaked. Surprising you could travel with guns back in the day. Wouldn't happen now, would it? They'd confiscate them. Guess it was a different world back then. Larry was accompanied by 2 trunks of books and a briefcase containing his clothes. Mother's luggage was sensibly divided between clothes and various volumes on cooking and gardening. I travelled with only those items that I thought necessary to relieve the tedium of a long journey. Excuse me. 4 books on natural history, a butterfly net, a dog, and a jam jar full of caterpillars, all in imminent danger of turning into chrysalids. Wouldn't be able to do that either these days with all the agricultural and fisheries regulations. Thus, by our standards fully equipped, we left the clammy shores of England. Wonder how English butterflies felt about hatching in Corfu, Greece, or if they even survived the change in climate. France, rain-washed and sorrowful. Switzerland, like a Christmas cake. Italy, exuberant, noisy and smelly. I didn't know Italy was smelly, people of Earth. It's rather disappointing to my worldview. I've never been to Italy. I've always wanted to go. It's ironic that spirits chatted to me in Italian, isn't it? Maybe that's where I'm destined to be one day. One never can tell. Where would I get the money from for that? It's in the lap of the gods. Right. Italy, exuberant, noisy and smelly, were past, leaving only confused memories. The tiny ship throbbed away from the heel of Italy out into the twilit sea. And as we slept in our stuffy cabins, somewhere in that tract of moon-polished water, we passed the invisible dividing line and entered the bright looking-glass world of Greece. Bright looking-glass world. It's an interesting way of putting it. Slowly this sense of change seeped down to us, and so at dawn we awoke restless and went on deck. I suppose what he means by that is most of the houses there are painted blue and white. I love that. You see pictures of Greece and everything's blue and white and shining in the sun. It just looks so friendly and welcoming and delightful. And yes, I'd like to go there one day too. Anywho, let's not think about it. I'll have to crawl into bed and switch my mind off and astral travel to other parts of Titania's realm where things are both real and unreal. Manifest reality one day at a time, one breath at a time. Right, slowly the sense of change seeped down to us, and so at dawn we awoke restless and went on deck. The sea lifted smooth blue muscles of wave as it stirred in the dawn light, and the foam of our wake spread gently behind us, like a white peacock's tail glinting with bubbles. It does look like that too. The sky was pale and stained with yellow on the eastern horizon. Ahead lay a chocolate-brown smudge of land, huddled in mist, with a frill of foam at its base. This was Corfu, and we strained our eyes to make out the exact shapes of the mountains, to discover valleys, peaks, ravines, and beaches, but it remained a silhouette. Then suddenly the sun lifted over the horizon, and the sky turned the smooth enamelled blue of a jay's eye. The endless, meticulous curves of the sea flamed for an instant, and then changed to a deep royal purple flecked with green. I miss the sea. The mist lifted in quick, lithe ribbons, and before us lay the island, the mountains, as though sleeping beneath a crumpled blanket of brown, the folds stained with the green of olive groves. Along the shore curved beaches as white as tusks among tottering cities of brilliant gold, red and white rocks. We rounded the northern cape, a smooth shoulder of rust-red cliff carved into a series of giant caves. The dark waves lifted our wake and carried it gently towards them, and then at their very mouths it crumpled and hissed thirstily among the rocks. Rounding the cape, we left the mountains, and the island sloped gently down, blurred with the silver and green iridescence of olives, with here and there an admonishing finger of black cypress against the sky. The shallow sea in the bays was butterfly blue, and even above the sound of the ship's engines we could hear, faintly ringing from the shore like a chorus of tiny voices, the shrill, triumphant cries of the cicadas. Right, we'll continue on with chapter 1, the unsuspected isle. We threaded our way out of the noise and confusion of the customs shed into the brilliant sunshine on the quay. Around us the town rose steeply, tiers of multicoloured houses piled haphazardly, green shutters folded back from their windows like the wings of 1,000 moths. Behind us lay the bay, smooth as a plate, smouldering with that unbelievable blue. Larry walked swiftly with head thrown back and an expression of such regal disdain on his face that one did not notice his diminutive size, keeping a wary eye on the porters who struggled with his trunks. Behind him strolled Leslie, short, stocky, with an air of quiet belligerence, and then Margot, trailing yards of muslin and scent. A mother looked like a tiny, harassed missionary in an uprising, was dragged unwillingly to the nearest lamp-post by an exuberant Roger and forced to stand there, staring into space, while he relieved the pent-up feelings that had accumulated in his kennel. Larry chose two magnificently dilapidated horse-drawn cabs, had the luggage installed in one, and seated himself in the second. Then he looked round irritably. "Well," he asked, "what are we waiting for?" "We're waiting for Mother," explained Leslie. Rogers found a lamp post. "Dear God," said Larry, and then hoisted himself upright in the cab and bellowed, "Come on, Mother, come on. Can't the dog wait?" "Coming, dear," called Mother, impassively and untruthfully, for Roger showed no signs of quitting the post. "That dog's been a damned nuisance all the way," said Larry. "Don't be so impatient," said Margot indignantly. "The dog can't help it. And anyway, we had to wait an hour in Naples for you." "My stomach was out of order," explained Larry coldly. "Well, probably his stomach's out of order," said Margot triumphantly. "It's 6 of one and a dozen of the other." "You mean half a dozen of the other." "Whatever I mean, it's the same thing." At this moment Mother arrived, slightly dishevelled, and we had to turn our attentions to the task of getting Roger into the cab. He had never been in such a vehicle and treated it with suspicion. Eventually we had to lift him bodily and hurl him inside, yelping frantically, and then pile in breathlessly after him and hold him down. The horse, frightened by this activity, broke into a shambling trot, and we ended in a tangled heap on the floor of the cab, with Roger moaning loudly underneath us. "What an entry," said Larry bitterly. "I had hoped to give an impression of gracious majesty, and this is what happens. We arrive in town like a troop of medieval tumblers. Don't keep on, dear," Mother said soothingly, straightening her hat. "We'll soon be at the hotel." So our cab clopped and jingled its way into the town while we sat on the horsehair seats and tried to muster the appearance of gracious majesty. How am I doing? I'm not an actor, my daughter is. Maybe that's why she's an actor. One can never tell. Shh. She doesn't like it when I say that show business runs in the family, you understand? She thinks she's the only one. A bit like the Catholics in hell. Or was that heaven? Heaven. I ruined the joke there, didn't I? Never mind. You feel me, don't you? Roger, wrapped in Leslie's powerful grasp, lolled his head over the side of the vehicle and rolled his eyes as though at his last gasp. Then we rattled past an alleyway in which 4 scruffy mongrels were lying in the sun. Roger stiffened, glared at them, and then set forth a torrent of deep barks. The mongrels were immediately galvanized into activity, and they sped after the cab, yapping vociferously. Our pose was irretrievably shattered, for it took 2 people to restrain the raving Roger, while the rest of us leaned out of the cab and made wild gestures with magazines and books at the pursuing horde. Oh, I miss my Beauregard. He could be such an asshole, but he was my asshole. I loved that little dog. Crystal referred to him as the asshole. She was extremely jealous of him. I don't know why. Maybe he mirrored my own temperament so perfectly. This only had the effect of exciting them still further, and at each alleyway we passed their numbers increased. And at each alleyway we passed, their numbers increased until by the time we were rolling down the main thoroughfare of the town there with some 24 dogs swirling about our wheels, almost hysterical with anger. Oh, Roger, you do know how to stir up a crowd, don't you? Just something that Beauregard would have done too. It's delightful. If you're going to exist in the world, fucking exist and stir up a crowd. People of Earth. Catch me if you can. Why doesn't somebody do something? Asked Larry, raising his voice above the uproar. This is like a scene from Uncle Tom's Cabin. Why don't you do something instead of criticising? Snapped Leslie, who was locked in combat with Roger. Larry promptly rose to his feet, snatched the whip from our astonished driver's hand, made a wild swipe at the herd of dogs, missed them, and caught Leslie across the back of the neck. Ouch. I threw that in. That would be an ouch, though. What the hell do you think you're playing at? Leslie snarled, twisting a scarlet and angry face towards Larry. Accident, explained Larry airily. I'm out of practice. It's so long since I used a horsewhip. Well, watch what you're bloody well doing, said Leslie loudly and belligerently. Now, dear, it was an accident, said Mother. Larry took another swipe at the dogs and knocked off Mother's hat. You're more trouble than the dogs, said Margot. Do be careful, dear, said Mother, clutching her hat. You might hurt someone. I should put the whip down. At that moment the cab shambled to a halt outside a doorway, over which hung a board with Pension Suisse inscribed on it, which is pretty weird because aren't they supposed to be in Corfu, Greece? Swiss pension? Swiss, public motel type situation. What is a pension actually? Still in denial about that one too. However, it does provide me a roof over my head and my daily bread, just like a universal, what do they call it? Basic income. Not enough to truly live or get out of your situation, but enough to keep you a prisoner of the Australian government for as long as you live. Both a gift and a punishment if you have aspirations to travel and buy your own home again, live life fully and ebulliently again. Well, then you're kind of fucked. But it helps to be a little bit insane so you can be in manic denial about it. Oh. However, I am grateful for the help with Rati coming to clean and the help with lawn mowing. So it's not all bad people there. And I get to live in paradise or planet hellscape in my lovely garden with my birds. So there are positives to being trapped. There are some positives. An open air prison, it feels like most of the time, but there are great positives. You chewing your own beak, little Kermie. Chewing their own beaks is a sign of contentment. He's very contented. Right. So they've arrived outside the Pension Suisse. The dogs, feeling that they were at last going to get to grips with this effeminate black canine who rode in cabs, surrounded us in a solid, panting wedge. The door of the hotel opened and an ancient, bewhiskered porter appeared and stood staring glassily at the turmoil in the street. The difficulties of getting Roger out of the cab and into the hotel were considerable, for he was a heavy dog and it took the combined efforts of the family to lift, carry and restrain him. Larry had by now forgotten his majestic pose and was rather enjoying himself. He leapt down and danced about the pavement with the whip, cleaving a path through the dogs, along which Leslie, Margot, Mother and I hurried, bearing the struggling, snarling Roger. We staggered into the hall, and the porter slammed the front door and leaned against it, his moustache quivering. The manager came forward, eyeing us with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Mother faced him, hat on one side of her head, clutching in one hand my jam jar of caterpillars. They must have all looked quite bonkers, to be frank. Ah, she said, smiling sweetly as though our arrival had been the most normal thing in the world. Our name's Durrell. I believe you've got some rooms booked for us? Yes, madame, said the manager, edging round the still grumbling Roger. They are on the first floor, 4 rooms and a balcony. How nice, beamed Mother. Then I think we'll go straight up and have a little rest before lunch. And with considerable majestic graciousness, she led her family upstairs. Later we descended to lunch in a large and gloomy room full of dusty potted palms and contorted statuary. We were served by the bewhiskered porter who had become the head waiter simply by donning tails and a celluloid dicky that creaked like a convention of crickets. I have no idea what a celluloid dicky is, and I don't dare find out, people of Earth. Suffice that it creaked like a convention of crickets. Some kind of apron, perhaps? I'm guessing. Just seen a piece of metal down on the ground. I don't think it's my missing sterling silver ring, but I have to look. Just one moment. Ow! I wonder how that got there. It's a piece of broken off costume jewellery. I don't remember working on that outside. It's amazing what pops up almost out of nowhere, just sitting on the lawn. It's not my ring though. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe the fairies are showing me, we're gonna give it back to you, Mama T, when we're ready, not when you're ready. That was a bit odd. It just caught my eye. I wonder what that is. Anyway, we'll carry on, people of Earth. I just prior to seeing that, I had what looked like a little grey moth land on my page and quickly disappear. It was tiny, about that size. Maybe it was a fairy. Gotta live between worlds, people of Earth, when you're a shaman. You constantly live between worlds. It's not so bad. It doesn't get you a ticket to Corfu or Athens or... Anyway, mustn't think about that. Let's just wait. I wonder if we've got any mail. No mail today. Right, where did we get segued? Oh, celluloid dickies. Doesn't mean what you think it means, by the way, just say. The meal, however, I guess I've only ever dealt with celluloid dickies. None of them were real, ultimately, were they? Not one, not in 60 fucking years. When was the last lover? Have to think about it. 18th of May 2018 was the last dick, and well, I always had high hopes for them, you know. High hopes. He was one that hit the mother lode twice, had a second opportunity to be a man to me, dear goddess. Mustn't think about it. Mustn't think about it. It's kind of comical. One day I'll make a video. I must write it out actually. It'll be kind of a tragic comedy, and I'll have to change their names for reasons of anonymity, people of Earth, but I might write a little skit about all my lovers, my encounters in my entire life, and all the quirky things they got right and all the quirky things they got wrong, which, when you balance the scales, outweighed the few lovely things they got right, people of Earth, by the gods. I probably shouldn't say this because I don't want to. No, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of comical. So Rati was explaining to me about, a friend of hers who's also from Indonesia. She just said to me, she's divorced. And I looked at her in surprise and I said, there seems to be a lot of divorce amongst, the Muslim community. I said, I'm surprised. I don't think they used to divorce that often in your community. And she smiled at me wryly. She said, Tanya, men are the same in every culture and community, and divorce happens amongst our community too. And I looked at her and I nodded, and then we both laughed. It's not funny, but we laughed at the reality that our world it's not how it used to be. So much divorce, even amongst, very religious cultures that traditionally didn't even consider divorce back in the day. Well, back in the day, they got killed instead, to be honest. That was an awful thing. But yes, so much divorce and fracture and people being unkind to each other and disharmony and disloyalty and debasement. It fills me with a kind of horror. I'm a product. My parents divorced, and my mother had several marriages, so it doesn't really faze me that much. To me, that's normal. But when you hear about religious communities and the increasing divorce rate amongst them too, it's like, what the fuck, people of Earth? What has happened to our world? But the way she put it so sweetly, Tanya, men are the same everywhere. And I nodded. It was such a deeply female observation to make. And of course the men probably say the same things about we women too, But there was a time, not that long ago, probably before I was born, when men were men and women were women, and they fought for each other and they stood by each other and they protected each other, and they lived and, if necessary, died for each other. And those values are very rare to see these days. Very rare. I remember Adrian, one of the people that still does go to the Brooklyn Standard, said to me once, we weren't romantically involved, nothing like that, so it came across as a very strange statement to make. He said to me, I would die for you. I looked at him, I said, really? Would you really die for me? Yes, Tanya. Don't know what was going on in his mind at the time. He seemed to think I was somebody special. It was very sweet. So a few months went by and I carefully whispered to him in his ear. I said, Remember the time you turned to me and you said you would die for me? And he smiled. Yes, I wouldn't want anyone to die for me, Adrian. But I've never forgotten that you said that. And thank you. It was a very kind, noble, sweet thing to say. Don't want anyone to die for me. That's ridiculous, people are there. Don't want anyone to die at all. I want us all to live fully and vibrantly and joyously with as much freedom as we can manage in these strange and dark times. Right, blessed be. The meal, however, was ample and well cooked, and we ate hungrily. As coffee was served, Larry sat back in his chair with a sigh. That was a passable meal, he said generously. What do you think of this place, Mother? Well, the food's all right, dear, said Mother, refusing to commit herself. They seem a helpful crowd, Larry went on. The manager himself gifted my bed nearer the window. He wasn't very helpful when I asked for paper, said Leslie. Paper? Asked Mother. What did you want paper for? For the lavatory. There wasn't any in there, explained Leslie. Shh! Not at the table, whispered Mother. You obviously don't look, said Margot in a clear and penetrating voice. They've got a small box full by the pan. Oh, Margot, dear, exclaimed Mother, horrified. What's the matter? Didn't you see the little box? Larry gave a snort of laughter. Owing to the somewhat eccentric plumbing system of the town, he explained to Margot kindly, that little box is provided for the debris, as it were, when you have finished communing with nature. Margot's face turned scarlet with a mixture of embarrassment and disgust. You mean that was, my God, I might have caught some foul disease, she wailed, and bursting into tears, fled from the dining room. Most insanitary, said Mother severely. It really is a disgusting way to do things. Quite apart from the mistakes one can make, I should think there's a danger of getting typhoid. Mistakes wouldn't happen if they'd organised things properly, Leslie pointed out, returning to his original complaint. Yes, dear, but I don't think we ought to discuss it now. The best thing we can do is to find a house as soon as possible before we all go down with something. Upstairs, Margot was in a state of semi-nudity, splashing disinfectant over herself in quantities, and Mother spent an exhausting afternoon being forced to examine her at intervals for the symptoms of the diseases which Margot felt sure she was hatching. It was unfortunate for Mother's peace of mind that the Pension Suisse happened to be situated on the road leading to the local cemetery. As we sat on our small balcony overhanging the street, an apparently endless succession of funerals passed beneath us. The inhabitants of Corfu obviously believed that the best part of a bereavement was the funeral, for each seemed more ornate than the last. Cabs decorated with yards of purple and black crepe were drawn by horses so enveloped in plumes and canopies that it was a wonder they could move. 6 or 7 of these cabs, containing the mourners in full and uninhibited grief, preceded the corpse itself. This came on another cart-like vehicle and was ensconced in a coffin so large and lush that it looked more like an enormous birthday cake. Some were white with purple, black and scarlet, and deep blue decorations. Others were gleaming black with complicated filigrees of gold and silver twining abundantly over them and glittering brass handles. I had never seen anything so colourful and attractive. It does sound delightful, doesn't it? What a splendid way to get taken out on your way to your eternal resting place. Probably the most fucking glamour they ever had in their entire lives. Or perhaps not, if they were wealthy. The mummity's rather partial to glamour, you understand. I might be a short, fat hobbit, but I can glam up with the best of them if I so choose. Attitude is everything. Let's hope it doesn't have to wait for my funeral, people of Earth. May there be many more opportunities for glamour and splendour and joie de vivre and living la vida loca as glamorously and amorously as I can possibly attain. Babies. When I say amorously, I mean platonic. Platonic. Calm your farm, people of Earth. But affection, sweetness is always welcome in my world. Right. Now this, I decided, was really the way to die, with shrouded horses, acres of flowers, and a horde of most satisfactorily grief-stricken relatives. I hung over the balcony rail watching the coffins pass beneath, absorbed and fascinated. As each funeral passed, and the sounds of mourning and the clopping of hooves died away in the distance, Mother became more and more agitated. "I'm sure it's an epidemic," she exclaimed at last, peering down nervously into the street. "Nonsense, Mother, don't fuss," said Larry airily. "But dear, so many of them. It's unnatural." "There's nothing unnatural about dying. People do it all the time." "Yes, but they don't die like flies unless there's something wrong." "Perhaps they save 'em up and bury 'em in a bunch," suggested Leslie, callously. "Don't be silly," said Mother. "I'm sure it's something to do with the drains. It can't be healthy for people to have those sort of arrangements." "My God," said Margot sepulchrally. "Then I suppose I will get it." No, dear, it doesn't follow," said Margot vaguely. "It might be something that's not catching." "I don't see how you can have an epidemic unless it's something catching," Leslie remarked logically. Sounds a bit fucking familiar, doesn't it? I thought it was going to be a lovely story, people of Earth. On we go. "Anyway," said Mother, refusing to be drawn into any medical arguments, "I think we ought to find out. Can't you ring up the health authorities, Larry?" If I were you, I wouldn't recommend it since they lie. But those were the days in the 20s and 30s when I don't think they lied that much. The golden age. Life before life before life. Did they lie? Probably. I hate liars. You've probably guessed that by now if you've been watching my videos. I refuse even to lie to my own self, although sometimes it would be nice to be truly delusional. Living in the land of Oz, with the wonderful wizardry that goes on, the derelictions of duty and the obfuscation of roles and the inability to stand up and be counted in actual spiritual wars comes to mind. But on we go with the story. There probably aren't any health authorities here, Larry pointed out, and even if there were, I doubt if they'd tell me. Well, Mother said with determination, there's nothing for it. We'll have to move. We must get out of the town. We must find a house in the country at once. The next morning we started on our house hunt, accompanied by Mr. Beeler, the hotel guide. He was a fat little man with cringing eyes and sweat-polished jowls. Ooh, how unappetizing. He was quite sprightly when we set off, but then he did not know what was in store for him. No one who has not been house hunting with my mother can possibly imagine it. We drove around the island in a cloud of dust while Mr. Beeler showed us villa after villa in a bewildering selection of sizes, colours and situations, and Mother shook her head firmly at them all. At last we had contemplated the 10th and final villa on Mr. Beeler's list. And Mother had shaken her head once again. Brokenly, Mr. Beeler seated himself on the stairs and mopped his face with his handkerchief. Madame Durrell, he said at last, I have shown you every villa I know, yet you do not want any. Madame, what is it you require? What is the matter with these villas? Mother regarded him with astonishment. Didn't you notice? She asked. None of them had a bathroom. Mr. Beeler stared at Mother with bulging eyes. But, Madame, he wailed in genuine anguish, what for you want a bathroom? Have you not got the sea? We returned in silence to the hotel. By the following morning, Mother had decided that we would hire a car and go out house hunting on our own. She was convinced that somewhere on the island there lurked a villa with a bathroom. We did not share Mother's belief, and so it was a slightly irritable and argumentative group that she herded down to the taxi rank in the main square. The taxi drivers, perceiving our innocent appearance, scrambled from inside their cars and flocked round us like vultures, each trying to outshout his compatriots. Their voices grew louder and louder, their eyes flashed, they clutched each other's arms and ground their teeth at one another, and then they laid hold of us as though they would tear us apart. Actually, we were being treated to the mildest of mild altercations, but we were not used to the Greek temperament, and to us it looked as though we were in danger of our lives. Yes, I probably wouldn't like that, being accosted by entire groups of taxi drivers. I'd be telling them all to fuck off, and when you get to the gate that says fuck off even further, which would make me most unpopular given that I'm the foreigner in their country. It's probably a reason why the gods don't let me travel, people of Earth. Things that make you go, Can't you do something, Larry? Mother squeaked, disentangling herself with difficulty from the grasp of a large driver. I would have just merely slapped him one. Then I'd probably be in prison for assault in a foreign country. I've heard Turkish jails are not very pleasant. I'd have to really behave if I went to Turkey, wouldn't I? I've never been in jail. I almost got, I did get driven up to the psych ward once, but that was under extenuating circumstances, a paedophile making lurid comments in front of my children. Wish I'd killed that man to this day, but there is that. Civilised human society. You understand? It's foul. It's foul having to be civilised all the goddamn time. Right. Don't worry, people of Earth. I'm a good woman. I am. Have little fits of pique every now and then, but by and large I'm a good woman. None of my enemies have died by my, hands or machinations. They've all died of natural attrition, which is incredibly disappointing and boring. So there is that. Tell them you report them to the British consul, suggested Larry, raising his voice above the noise. Why didn't he just simply say, get your filthy hands off my mother pronto now, like a real man would have done? The British, with their stiff upper lips and all that suffering stuffiness. Boring. Don't be silly, dear, said Mother breathlessly. Just explain that we don't understand. Margot, simpering, stepped into the breach. We English, she yelled at the gesticulating drivers. We understand Greek. If that man pushes me again, I'll poke him in the eye, said Leslie, his face flushed red. Finally, a natural response. And now, dear, panted Mother, still struggling with the driver, who was propelling her vigorously towards his car. I don't think they mean any harm. At that moment, everyone was startled into silence by a voice that rumbled out above the uproar, a deep, rich, vibrant voice, the sort of voice you would expect a volcano to have. Hoi, roared the voice. Why don't yous have someone who can talk your own language? Turning, we saw an ancient Dodge parked by the curb, and behind the wheel sat a short, barrel-bodied individual with ham-like hands and a great leathery, scowling face surmounted by a jauntily tilted, peaked cap. He opened the door of the car, surged out onto the pavement, and waddled across to us. Then he stopped, scowling even more ferociously, and surveyed the group of silent cab drivers. Them's been worrying yous? He asked Mother. No, said Mother, untruthfully. It was just that we had difficulty in understanding them. Yous want someone who can talks your own language, repeated the new arrival. Them's bastards, if yous will excuses the words, would swindles their own mothers. Excuses me a minute, and I'll fix them's. He turned on the drivers a blast of Greek that almost swept them off their feet. Aggrieved, gesticulating, angry, they were herded back to their cars by this extraordinary man, having given them a final and, it appeared, derogatory blast of Greek. He turned to us again. Where's yous wants to goes? He asked, almost truculently. Can you take us to look for a villa? Asked Larry. Sure, I'll take yous anywheres. Just yous says. Sounds almost Australian, doesn't he? It's the yous that's the giveaway. You have to laugh. We are looking, said Mother firmly, for a villa with a bathroom. Do you know of one? The man brooded like a great sun-tanned gargoyle, his black eyebrows twisted into a knot of thoughtfulness. Bathrooms, he said. Yous wants a bathrooms? None of the ones we have seen so far had them, said Mother. Oh, I knows a villa with a bathrooms, said the man. I was wondering if it was goings to be big enough for yous. Will you take us to look at it, please? Asked Mother. Sure, I takes yous, gets into the cars. We climbed into the spacious car, and our driver hoisted his bulk behind the steering wheel and engaged his gears with a terrifying sound. We shot through the twisted streets on the outskirts of the town, swerving in and out, among the loaded donkeys, the carts, the groups of peasant women, and innumerable dogs, our horn honking a deafening warning. During this, our driver seized the opportunity to engage us in conversation. Each time he addressed us, he would crane his massive head round to see our reactions, and the car would swoop back and forth across the road like a drunken swallow. It drove like my father, for fuck's sake. We mustn't think about that, people of Earth. Use English? Question mark. Use English? Thought so. English always wants bathrooms. I gets a bathroom in my house. Spiro's my name. Or that case it would be Spiro. Spiro's my name. Spiro Hakiopoulos. They always calls me Spiro Americano on account of I lives in America. Yes, spent 8 years in Chicago. That's where I learnt my goods English. I would raise one eyebrow, but I've never been able to raise one eyebrow, so I'll raise two. Went's there to makes monies. Yes, after 8 years, I says, Spiros, I says, you's made enough. So's I comes back to Greece. Bring this car, best on the islands. No one else gets a car like this. All the English tourists know me. They always asks for me when they comes here. They knows they won't be swindled. I likes the English. best kinds of people. Honest to gods, if I wasn't Greek, I'd likes to be English. We sped down a white road covered in a thick layer of silky dust that arose on a boiling cloud behind us, a road lined with prickly pears like a fence of green plates, each cleverly balanced on another's edge and splashed with knobs of scarlet fruit, which are indeed edible, by the way. Sabra, prickly pear. In Hebrew it's called a sabra. It's what Israelis call themselves. I am sabra. Picked up a few things along the way, people of Earth. Useless bits of information that still didn't bring me either to Israel or Greece or Italy or anywhere else for that matter. Could be bitter about that. Invariably, I'm frequently bitter about it, but there's no pointers there. We passed vineyards where the tiny stunted vines were laced in green leaves, olive groves where the pitted trunks made 100 astonished faces at us out of the gloom of their own shadow. I think I'm sunburnt. And great clumps of green striped cane that fluttered their leaves like a multitude of green flags. Well, I will keep sitting out in the sunshine, won't I? Suicidal proclivities, people are there. But real sunlight has also other health properties, so there is that. Mustn't think negative, must we? At last we roared to the top of a hill, and Spiro crammed on his brakes and brought the car to a dust-misted halt. "There's yours," he said, pointing with a great stubby forefinger. "That's the villa with the bathrooms like yours wanted." Mother, who had kept her eyes firmly shut throughout the drive, now opened them cautiously and looked. Spiro was pointing at a gentle curve of hillside that rose from the glittering sea. The hill and the valleys around it were an eider-down of olive groves that shone like a fish-like gleam where the breeze touched the leaves. I'm there. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Halfway up the slope, guarded by a group of tall, slim cypress trees, nestled a small strawberry pink villa, like some exotic fruit lying in the greenery. The cypress trees undulated gently in the breeze, as if they were busily painting the sky a still brighter blue for our arrival. Thus concludes chapter 1, and tomorrow I shall be back with chapter 2, the strawberry pink villa. Hope you enjoyed that almost as much as I did, if not more than I did. Why not? It's all subjective to our experiential awareness and whatever magic is woven by my rendering of the stories to you, people of Earth. Blessed be, it's a glorious day. Live your best life. Live, love, and rejoice. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye for now.